Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Yanamurtim Dvandvatitam Ganganasadrisham Tattvamasya Dilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Triguna Rahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami Narayanam Padmabhavam Vashishtam Shaktim Chatat Putra Parasarancha Vyasam Sukham Godapadam Mantam Govinda Yogindra Mata Shishisham Shri Shankaracharya Matasya Padma Padam Chasta Malakancha Shisham Tam Totikam Vartika Karamanyan Asmad Gurum Shantata Manatoshmi Vishwam Darpanadrisha Maninagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyan Atmani Mayaya Bhayurivod Bhutam Yata Nidraya Ya Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanameva Dvayam Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om. Okay, good. When remember the subtle body has three centers or three functions. A feeling function called the mind, a thinking function called the intellect, and a doing function called the ego, the doer. And there's this notion in the spiritual world that you should choose a path that's in harmony with your most highly developed function. So, for example, if you're an emotional person, then you should pursue the path of Bhakti-Yoga, because Bhakti-Yoga supposedly is meant for emotional people, and it's meant to convert your emotions into devotion. You stop being an emotional person and you become a devotional person. That's Bhakti-Yoga. And if you're an intellectual type, thinking type, then you should not bother with bhakti. You should pursue the path of knowledge. Jnana-Yoga. Yeah, jnana means knowledge, so the yoga of knowledge would be for you. And if you're the robust, active type, rajasic type, doer type, then you should pursue the path of karma yoga. And that idea, there's no sanction for that idea in the Vedas. The Vedas are the source of the Vedanta. Vedas are ancient texts that cover two topics, dharma and knowledge, moksha. And there's no mention of these three paths in the Vedas at all. And in Vedanta, we call this idea of three paths for three different types of people, we call it the Multipathconfusion. It was actually introduced about 100 years ago by Swami Vivekananda. And the the reason that the Vedas do not put forth, propose three different paths, is because every individual has a emotional center, an intellect center, and a doer center. And to develop any one of those centers at the expense of the other centers is going to create a distorted, subtle body. In other words, an emotional person tends to not want to think. They don't like thinking. They think there's something wrong with thinking, yet they think all the time. Because you can't have feelings without thoughts, so you always have thoughts, but they're fixated on their emotions. They're feeling people, they want to feel all the time. So they ignore thinking. Any idea that makes them question their feelings, they will just reject it immediately. So their understanding never develops. And the same is true for the intellectual types, who just don't want anything to do with any kind of feelings. They're frightened of their feelings. They don't want to feel anything. They're all cerebral in their brains. And so they avoid all the devotional practices that are enjoined upon seekers, and so on. But every human being has these three centers. So it stands to reason that if there are three yogas, then I need to practice all three of those yogas. Now, actually, in the Vedas, there's no mention of Bhakti-Yoga. Isn't that interesting? You'd think, oh, Bhakti-Yoga, but no. There's no mention of Bhakti-Yoga in the Vedas. There's plenty of talk about bhakti. Bhakti means devotion. But no mention of Bhakti-Yoga. Why is that? Because the Vedas only recognize two paths, the path of action and the path of knowledge. The path of action for extroverted people and the path of knowledge for contemplative people. And all of the practices that fall under the heading of Bhakti-Yoga are actually just karmas. Chanting, praying, taking pilgrimages, and so forth and so on. Surrendering to gurus, and that's all of that. Worshipping deities and all that. None of those, all those actions are either physical actions, like taking pilgrimages, going to India and so forth and so on, or manasa karmas, that is, mental and emotional karmas. So they don't qualify as special, so bhakti doesn't qualify as a special path. And additionally, everything that motivates us is what? Is motivated by love, by bhakti. We're devoted to whatever we're doing. Love is willing attention. Love is consciousness in the form of our attention and what we pay attention to. That's all love is. It's just your attention, what you pay. If you have a relationship with somebody and you stop paying attention to them, what will they say? What's the first thing they'll tell you? You don't love me. Huh? Isn't that right? That's all they say. And that's it. You don't love them because you're not paying attention to them. If you love them, you'd pay attention to them. Because you love something else more, so your attention goes to some other object. It doesn't go to your partner. Understand? So bhakti is devotion. Is what motivates everybody to do what they do. Love of whatever it is. And since you're always paying attention to something, you're always loving something. So there's no actual thing called Bhakti-Yoga in our tradition. It's not a special or unique path. Because I have three inner centers in my subtle body, and remember, we're talking now about the preparation of the subtle body for what? For moksha. We're talking about preparing our mind and our heart for moksha. It stands to reason that all three of my centers should be what? Equally developed. They should be in balance. And the structure of my subtle body should be harmonious, a beautiful isosceles triangle, so that all three of the centers are what? Equally developed, and all three are yoked to the self. My feelings should be flowing toward the self, my thoughts should be flowing toward the self, and my action should be dedicated to the self. Then all three of those centers will be in yoga. Understand? They'll be connected to my goal. This is what yoga is properly. Yoga is not necessarily, I mean, it is physical asanas and so forth, and pranayama. That's a part of yoga. But the real yoga is what? Harmonizing, balancing your inner centers and hooking them up or connecting them to the self. And that takes effort. That's why yoga, that's the doing that we do, that the doer's meant to do. Rather than having the doer chasing various objects, the doer is enjoined to practice yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, once he's got him calmed down, Arjuna's a little emotional in the beginning, he says, and he explains to him Karma Yoga. He teaches him Karma Yoga, which we taught yesterday. And then he says to Arjuna, he gives him a provisional identity rather than give him an identity, because Arjuna can't understand that he's a self. He has an emotional problem. Krishna tells him that he's the self and that everything's the self, and it goes over Arjuna's head. He doesn't get it. So then Krishna says to Arjuna, he said, okay, I've taught you self-knowledge, but now I'm going to teach you yoga. It's a kind of ironic, funny place, because it means that Arjuna didn't get the self-knowledge, and Krishna was wasting his breath teaching Arjuna self-knowledge because Arjuna wasn't prepared. So then he explains what Karma Yoga is. He says Karma Yoga removes great fear, and it prepares the mind to understand that you're the self. And then he says, and therefore, O Arjuna, be a yogi. He doesn't mean stand on your head and twist your body like a pretzel and back bends and breathe and all that. That's not what he means by a yogi there. He means, therefore, what? Yoke or connect all three of your inner centers to this idea that I'm awareness. So, having said that, we've taken care of so far now in our talk on yoga. And yoga is a vast topic. It's a much bigger topic, and in a way, more interesting topic than the self. We talked about Karma Yoga. We've taken care of the doer. If you have a doer, and if the idea of doing an action is a problem for you, then you should do your actions as Karma Yoga, with the Karma Yoga attitude. And that will take care of the doer. It's hard to do because it's the philosophy of Karma Yoga, the idea of Karma Yoga, is completely contrary to the ego's thought system. The ego wants what it wants, when it wants it, the way it wants it. That's its idea of happiness. And because I'm so egocentric and so invested in what I want, I simply ignore Ishvara. Yet Ishvara is the one that gives me what I want. See? So to get out of this wanting active position for the subtle body, we need to give knowledge of Ishvara and talk about reactions and the results. And develop an attitude that's going to remove those wants, those vasanas, to get the doer calmed down. Because as long as the doer is just doing all the time, it's not going to be peaceful enough to contemplate on its nature. So then for our understanding, we have Jnana-Yoga. We've been practicing Jnana-Yoga for the last few days, since Sunday night. And this teaching of Vedanta is Jnana-Yoga. Right? That's going to take care of our thinking. This is very important. The doer is very important, but how you think is very important too. And so Jnana-Yoga, what redirects our thought stream away from the objects back to the subject. It keeps our mind constantly meditating on the subject, on me, not on the objects and what the objects can do for me. And it reveals the fact that I am limitless, non-dual, ordinary, ever-present awareness. Now, perhaps the most famous, most premier teaching of Jnana-Yoga is the yoga of the three states. Is the teaching of the three states. Yoga means topic. Yoga, that's another main meaning of topic. If you notice in the Bhagavad Gita, at the bottom of every chapter, it says, now the yoga of Arjuna's sorrow is completed. Now the yoga of bhakti is completed. Now the yoga of karma is completed. So it doesn't mean those are all special yogas. It doesn't mean that pain and misery is a yoga. It means, what it means is that now we have completed the topic of suffering. Now we have completed the topic of action. Now we have completed the topic of devotion and so forth. So yoga in this has another meaning, not just to connect or to communicate, but it means the topic. Now the topic of Jnana-Yoga is the self, obviously. It's only one topic all the time, really, because everything is the self, and so we're always teaching the self one way or the other. And the source of Jnana-Yoga are the Upanishads. There are three main sources for the Vedanta, for Vedanta pramana. We said Vedanta is not a philosophy. Vedanta is a pramana. It's a means of knowledge. It's like the eyes for awareness. The physical eyes, you can't see awareness, but with the eye of wisdom, with the eye of knowledge, you can see awareness. You can know awareness and understand it and set yourself free. Right? So there are these three sources. The original source are the Upanishads. At one time there were thousands of Upanishads. Now there are only about 100 left. I think 108 or so are left, of which 10 are considered to be major Upanishads. If you understand these 10, that's good enough. And of those 10, the Mandukya Upanishad is considered the king of the Upanishads. This is the most meditated on, studied, and taught Upanishad of all the Upanishads. And what this Upanishad deals with is the nature of experience. Well, it talks about the nature of experience. Because, we're all basically experience-oriented. We're not basically knowledge-oriented. We're all about what we're experiencing and so forth. That's our basic concern. So, since we're so fascinated by experience, and we're so fascinated by ourselves, that we need to analyze and look at experience carefully and see how the self relates to experience. And if the self relates to experience, and in what way the self relates to experience. The self is experienceless. The self is a non-experiencing awareness. So what is its relationship to experience is unfolded in this teaching. If you leave this, if in an hour you haven't understood that you're the jiva, you're not a person, and that you're awareness, then you got some more work to do, because this is one of the most amazing, perhaps the most amazing of Vedanta's teachings. It's extremely clear. It will prove to you you're not who you think you are. People say, well, that's not my experience. Well, okay, fine, but we're not really concerned with your experience. We're concerned. This Upanishad reveals the unexamined logic of your own experience. You may very well experience. Everybody's got their own experience, but what is the logic of your experience? What is the knowledge that's informing all your experience? And how does your experience work? Is the topic of this Upanishad. The other two sources of Vedanta are the Brahma Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita. That's on the premier level, on the top level. The Brahma Sutras are commentaries by a great sage, Badarayana, about the nature of the Upanishads and the Vedas. And they begin with the statement, Atato Brahma Jinyasu. It means, now therefore the inquiry into Brahman. Because there's a big argument for thousands of years about whether the Vedas are about moksha or the Vedas are about karma, about heaven and hell, and about getting what you want. It's a big argument. So it's still going on today. It's an eternal argument. Some people want stuff here, they're chasing experience, and other people want freedom. And the Vedas actually cover both topics. How you can get what you want, that's called the karma kanda of the Vedas, and how you can get free of the wanter and your wants, that's called Vedanta, or knowledge, or moksha. So then underneath that, but below that, there are 6 levels of literature. The tree of knowledge just spreads out. Commentaries by great sages on these texts, clarifying doubts that are contradictions that appear in these texts. And then original texts by great sages, great yogis and mahatmas, elucidating various points, original texts on the topics of moksha and so forth. It's a huge body. Then the Puranas, the Itihasas, so forth and so on. Now, this Upanishad is called Mandukya Upanishad. And Mandukya means a frog Upanishad. That's a weird one, huh? The frog Upanishad. And the pundits in the Vedic world, have been arguing about why this is called the frog Upanishad. And after I've explained this, after I've taught you this Upanishad, see if you can figure out. I used to offer anybody a free book who found it, but I found that a lot of people are quite smart, or they watched some other video they didn't tell me, and then they I won't offer you a free book. I don't have any free books anyway, but I can't carry them with me. You see if you can figure out why they gave this Upanishad the name of the frog Upanishad. You'll see. You should. Now, what the Upanishad says is this, and it's a very short Upanishad. There's commentaries on it which are more extensive, but the Upanishad itself is only 12 verses. And that's all you really need. But this is an Upanishad, if you read it, you won't get it. Probably won't get it. It's too cryptic. The Upanishads are like little nuggets of truth. They were not, they're just like power-packed little mantras, like E equals MC squared. That's a powerful little statement. E equals MC squared. And that thing can be expanded out and expanded out. And you can talk about that. You can teach that for, weeks or months. You can consume huge blackboards of formula and various equations and so forth and so on that explain and reveal what E equals MC squared. And the Upanishads are like that. Most of them are not detailed. They're just nuggets of truth, and they need to be unfolded by a teacher. So there's only 12 of these statements in there, but it's the most powerful Upanishad there is. Now, what does it say? What does this Upanishad say? Upanishad means, the word Upanishad means that which sits nearest to you and destroys ignorance. Upanishad. Shad means to destroy. Upa means near. So it's what Nishchaya means to sit. So what sits near you and what destroys ignorance means awareness, knowledge. And this knowledge has been passed down from centuries. It flows from the self down to the various teachers until the present day. Upanishads are still being written, actually. Anytime you have a revelation that's in harmony with the original meaning of the Upanishad, then that's called an Upanishad. And Ramana Maharshi wrote a little text called, what was it called? No, it's called, what's it? Atma-darshan. That's, well, I can't, gee, it's funny, I can't remember it. I can't remember, but it has been granted the status of an Upanishad by the Vedanta community, by the Vedanta Sampradaya. So anybody could reveal an Upanishad, or an Upanishad could be revealed through anybody at any time, because this knowledge is out of time. It's beyond now and then. It's something that happens in the eternal present. When a person's mind is open and clear, then this knowledge is revealed to them. So it doesn't come from the person. If it comes from the person, then you've got a big problem. Always. Anything that's coming from a person, your suspicion radar should go up. You should immediately be suspicious and careful, because if it comes from a person, it will be contaminated by that person's ignorance. And yes.
And who decided, for example, this text from Ramana, that this is same.
Well, the custodians of the knowledge today, Dayananda, all the Dayananda, the sages in this lineage. Actually, Swami Dayananda has actually taught that. It's called Upadesha Saram, the essence of the teaching. Called Upadesha Saram. Right, there it came. Right. So this sampradaya is a living sampradaya today. This tradition, this lineage is living today. There are great sages today, as great as the Buddha or Badarayana or Shankara, living right here today among us. And they're the ones that keep this knowledge pure. I'm a lineage holder in this tradition. That's why I have to attack the neos in these others. I try to be nice about it. But we can't allow these incorrect ideas or doctrines to infiltrate into Vedanta. Now, everybody's claiming they're teaching Vedanta now. It's very interesting. So many people, they have no idea what Vedanta is. They just picked up a little bit of things, and they twist the Vedanta to fit their own ideas. One of the examples, it's been going on for a long time. And because they've never really been taught the tradition properly from the inside. The Vivekananda idea of the three paths, what we call the multi-path confusion, that we have to talk about. It's not the kiss of death if you think that way, but it will mislead you if you think in this way. And nowadays, because Vedanta is becoming in the public consciousness, and because you can see that it's an amazing teaching, people are just picking up the bits and pieces that they like, and then they're saying they're teaching Vedanta. And they're perverting the doctrine, perverting the teachings. So we have to be very careful to see to it that those ideas are not accepted in the tradition, and make it clear why these are not good ideas. You know, the knowledge experience idea, which you know, I'm probably the first person for years, probably the only person around who's had the guts, to actually explain the difference between knowledge and experience. I get not hate mail exactly, but I get nasty letters from people, particularly guru types, who somehow know that that's the truth, but it's so difficult for them to accept that moksha is not experiential. It's so impossible because they've been telling everybody a moksha is a special experience. Enlightenment's a special experience. And once you get that experience and make it permanent, then it'll set you free. I just got an email this morning. It was in my box this morning from a woman. And she wasn't angry. She didn't even know she had that confusion. So I can teach her maybe not, because people, that are chasing experience, usually they're just not qualified for Vedanta. Yes, Andreas.
This topic, experience versus knowledge, is also a big thing in the traditional Dayananda teaching.
Oh yeah. The Bhagavad Gita is all experience and knowledge. In fact, all of that's why there are two paths. There's the path of action or experience for doers, and there's the path of knowledge for sannyasis or renunciates. Those are the only two paths. Either you're a contemplative person who doesn't have karma and is free of karma and just wants to know the truth, or you're a karmic, you have a lot of karma and you want to know the truth. Both sannyasis and karmis want to know Bhagawan. But karmis, doers, they've got karma. So they've got to understand karma yoga, and they've got to purify their mind until their mind gets contemplative. Then they become sannyasis. Yes?
There's this model of Shankara, I think it's in Aparoksha Anubhuti, which is the 4 steps of Vedanta. And the 4th step is called Anubhava. Bhava is a feeling or a state, and I'm a bit confused about.
Well, actually, bhava means knowledge. It means knowledge as well as experience. That's right. Anubhava, that's right. Bhava, or it means an experience. But how do you separate experience and knowledge? Like, you're experiencing my hand now.
Yeah.
Do you know it's a hand? Yes. Because you're experiencing it. So the knowledge of the hand and the experience of the hand are one. Huh? They're the same. Because if reality is non-dual, then knowledge and experience have to be the same. But if I only focus on experience, I'm not going to be set free because I've got an ignorance problem. See, I haven't gained the knowledge of the self. Understand? Yes. Yeah.
Is there a difference between knowledge and knowing? Do you mean knowledge?
Yeah. Knowledge means knowing. The knower knows what? That I'm whole and complete. So the knower, the one that knows, is what? Knows that he or she's the self. That's what knowledge is. I'm the self. The nature of awareness is knowledge. It's only because we're aware that we can have knowledge. Knowledge is completely dependent upon knowing, on awareness. And the knower, the one that knows, is what? Is awareness. Without that, there's no knowledge whatsoever. So, you're going to see now what the difference between knowledge and experience is here. You should. And we teach this. Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering, if you're not the doer, why you have something to do to protect Vedanta?
No, my doer, that's my doer's job. I have a doer. No, I'm not the doer. I'm not the doer, but I have a doer. Everybody has a doer. Now I give my doer that job. Because everybody's got a job, don't they? Everybody's got a doer, and everybody's got dharma, a job to do.
But it's not important for the Dharma, for Vedanta, that you do this.
Oh, yes, it is. Because if we don't keep the Vedanta clean, it'll get corrupted and then it won't work as a means of knowledge. If you change this doctrine, it won't work. See, none of this has anything to do with me. I didn't cook up or dream up any of this. This is not my experience or anything. This is just pure knowledge. Like if you say E equals MC squared, if you say, well, I say E equals MC to the fourth, not to the squared. E equals MC cubed, I say E equals MC cubed. Now, is that true? No, it's not true. E equals MC squared is the truth. E equals MC cubed is not the truth. But I had a revelation. I saw E equals MC cubed. Einstein is wrong. And then I go around telling everybody, no, Einstein was wrong. E equals MC cubed to the third, not to the second.
But it would be revealed with other mathematics and other...
Right, but it will...
They will prove it. And for Vedanta, Ishvara will protect it.
And that's how Ishvara protects it. It makes people like me do what I do. Ishvara doesn't exist apart from people here. So Ishvara is obviously working through people all the time. It's Ishvara that's protecting the knowledge in the form of Ram. I didn't set out to do this. I didn't think this is my job. This was a job that was assigned to me by Ishvara. I wasn't thinking, oh, well, I'll teach Vedanta. I didn't have any idea that I would be sitting in front of you. I didn't even want to sit in front of anybody talking Vedanta. My idea is to go fishing and make love with my wife and travel around the world when I've done a lot of all those things. And that I find very, very enjoyable. I had no idea of doing this. I love doing this, but this was just presented to me by Bhagavan. I made the mistake of writing this book, and then somebody else made the mistake of publishing it, and other people made the mistake of reading it, and then now we've got this situation. I didn't create this situation at all. I didn't solicit it, I didn't want it. In fact, I tried to avoid it. I've known who I am for 45 years, and nobody knew who I was. I just lived a simple life. Just totally simple life. I lived in the mountains, and I lived in India. You know, just all by myself, enjoying myself. And then suddenly, this was given to me. So, you know, this teaching is a beautiful teaching, and we can't allow people to corrupt it. So that's why we have to make it clear. It's not that these people are doing it, they're not corrupting it maliciously. They just don't understand because they've never been taught. See, I'm just teaching what I've been taught. It isn't like I read a bunch of books and then I started thinking, oh, this means this and that means that, and then I make my own teaching out of it. People say to me, this is your teaching. I say, no, this is not my teaching. You're wrong. This is Vedanta, and I've been taught this. And it so happens that in the teaching, I was set free by it. Because my teacher taught it the way it was meant to be taught, didn't add anything of his or her of his own to the teaching. Yes, Andreas.
But to be fair and see the whole picture, Ishvara also presents and creates the corrupt stuff.
Well, sure, that's right. You know, but you know, if you allow corruption to stand, the whole society will deteriorate. That's the argument in the Bhagavad Gita. So Ishvara says that. Ishvara said, when there's a decline in righteousness, means when Dharma gets strong, Adharma gets stronger than Dharma, he said, then I appear to set the things right. So we can't allow that. We can't allow, we can't allow these pure ideas to get sullied and become philosophies and opinions of people. It has to be kept pure. I don't get anything out of it. I get grief because people don't like me for doing it. So I don't care that they don't like me, to tell you the truth. But basically, I get bad emails maybe 5 or 6 times a year. And I hear stories, people say, well, that James, he this and he that, and so forth and so on. Because I dare to say things, that are just, there's logic to them. If you look at the statements that we make, the whole teaching hangs together. The logic is perfect here. And you can't really argue with it. Understand? So that's why we need to keep it that way. And so, some of the neos have actually taken down their websites and quit teaching neo and studying the Vedanta, and then begin to teach Vedanta. Actually, there's a few like that, very courageous people who had following and were respected and so forth as neo teachers. Now have what? Stopped teaching. And now they're teaching, and then spent 2 or 3 years learning the Vedanta, found that it set them free, and now they're teaching Vedanta. So, because it's a complete teaching, and it doesn't come from me. Like I said, if it comes from me, you should be suspicious. I'll tell you, I can sell ice to an Eskimo. Huh? Believe me. I'm very good at selling people things. I was a business person most of my life. I know how to sell. I know how to convince you and get you to buy. But I don't have to sell it. It sells itself. See? It sells itself. This is purely disinterested. It set me free, and I'm extremely grateful for that. I think it's the greatest thing. Because I've been happy for 45 years. I haven't had a bad day for 45 years. Even when they're cutting me open, I lay down and I'm calm and peaceful, and the doctor says, geez, this is a weird one. Huh? I don't even know if I'm going to wake up or not. I could have died there on the operating table. I was quite happy. I said, that's up to you, Ishwar. You want me back? Then you take care of this operation. If you don't, then I'll be dead. Anyway, let's get on with the Upanishad. It's important to understand this, though. This is all part of the teaching. You know. So, okay. Now, what the Upanishad says is this. It says that consciousness has three states. There are three states of consciousness. Okay? Only three. There's not 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, 50, whatever it is. There's only three states of consciousness. The waking state, the sleep state, and the deep sleep state. Does anybody have another state of consciousness that they experience? No, you don't. This is just true for everybody. There's nobody this doesn't apply to, because human beings have these three states: waking, dream, and deep sleep. Okay? Now, and it proceeds to analyze these states with reference to each other and these states with reference to the self. Now, in the waking state, consciousness is turned outward. See the arrows here? The self is in the middle. This is called the self is in the middle, and consciousness is spraying outward. Its attention is going outward. The Upanishad says the self, the waker, and this state is experienced by a jiva, an individual. That jiva is called Vishwa. Vishwa means the one who's aware of objects, the world. So this entity is a waking state entity. Now we're all, I don't see anybody's asleep here. Looks like we're all in the waking state. We're all Vishwas now. And our consciousness is turned outward. Ramji's speaking and you're listening. The words are coming in from the outside, you're paying attention to the words. We're in the waking state of consciousness. We're Vishwas right now. And it says that this Vishwa has 18 mouths. 18 mouths. What? What do you mean? I don't have 18 mouths. I have one mouth. No, that's not the mouth. Mouth is a symbol. With a mouth, what do? You eat. You consume, don't you? Your mouth is a symbol of eating or consumption. Enjoyment. Hopefully. And it says that you have 18 of these mouths. Actually, on the chart, there's only 13. I had to leave 5 off because the graphics looked funny. But I have to tell you that I didn't put in the other 5. What are those 18 mouths? 10 senses, 5 pranas, mind, intellect, and ego. Now, why are those things called mouths? Because they're awful hungry. They're consuming what? Experience. My body is consuming, my eyes are consuming sights, my ears are consuming sounds, my skin is consuming touches, my heart is consuming emotions, my intellect is consuming ideas, right? My pranas are I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, so forth and so on. My pranas are constantly eating, consuming. He's a consumer. This waker, this waking state entity is experience hungry. People are all so in love with their experience. In fact, their whole life is only about what they're experiencing, what they're consuming, what they're eating. Right? Hopefully you digest and a lot of experience doesn't get digested. That's why what's suffering, because you consume all these experiences and so forth, and you don't know how to process them. And so you get indigestion and become sick. Right? That's called samsara. So this is that part of yourself that just wants things and is always doing things and eating things. Okay? Everybody's got that part. There's nothing unique about it. Now, and that's called Vishwa, the waking state. Vishwa's a waking state entity. Now, the second state of consciousness is called the dream state. And for each state, there's an experiencing entity. There's a state, waking state is there. Ishwar created the waking state, and then Ishwar created a waking state entity called Vishwa for what? For the purpose of enjoying the experiences, working out its karma by gaining experience. That's how it's set up, the way it's set up. Now then, Ishwara created another state called the dream state. And the dream state is experienced by an entity called Tejasa, the dreamer. We'll explain the meaning of that a little later. It's a revealing word. All of these words in this text are revealing words. They're chosen for a very, very specific purpose because they reveal something about the self. So this dreamer is called Tejasa. Oh, in this state, let's back up here. What is it that's causing the consumption? The vasanas. Right around the self is the vasana layer. I should have made another little layer with V's in it here. The vasanas are driving the waker to consume. Because that waker feels empty. His stomach is always empty. The consumer is always hungry. But according to the vasanas, because he's ignorant. He can't see the self inside. He only sees the world outside. That's Vishwa. Now, in the dream state, consciousness is turned inward. See that how the arrows are all going in now? In the waking state, they're all going out. Now what? All of them are turned inward. And the dreamer is experiencing a dream world, isn't it? In that world, you see mountains and trees and dogs and cats, and you have feelings and emotions, you have sensations, you can smell, you can taste, you can make love, you can eat, you can do everything in the dream that you could do in the waking state, and maybe a few more. You can maybe fly in a dream. Isn't it? So what are you experiencing in this state? Now, you're obviously not experiencing objects outside. Why? Because what? Your senses are shut down. Your sense instruments, your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin are not working. So no sense information is coming to you from the outside world, from the material world, is it? But you're experiencing a whole world inside. What are you experiencing? You're experiencing your vasanas. Your vasanas are the essence of your experience. Remember, we explained what vasanas are. You're experiencing the essence of your experience, and those vasanas are sprouting in the subtle body, appearing in the subtle body, in the form of imagery and feelings and thoughts. And so you're experiencing the inner world, the subtle body here. The dream state is the experience of the subtle body. Hold it till the end, okay? Because this is very important. Don't ask questions. Later on you can ask questions. Because the logic here is very tight and very subtle. Okay. Right. So here in this state, consciousness is turning inward. And in this state, the dreamer takes his or her experience to be real, doesn't it? When you're dreaming, you think that what you're experiencing is real. When you're awake, you think that what you're experiencing is real, don't you? Huh? Yeah, you do. Okay, which is the reality? Which state is real? Yeah, that's right. Neither one, huh? Because reality is only one thing. It's only one thing. Reality is non-dual. So you can't be two things. This can't be reality and that can't be reality. But when I'm in this state, I think it's reality. And when I'm in this state, I think it's reality, don't I? See how it is? Should start to lose your grip now on your notion, your idea of what reality is as we move through this teaching. Now, the third state that we experience is called deep sleep state. Now, as you can see on the chart, there's no arrows there. Consciousness is not turned outward, and consciousness is not turned inward. What's consciousness doing in this state? Consciousness is undifferentiated. It's just a mass. It doesn't go any direction. It's just formless and limitless in this state. And there are no arrows. Why not? Because the subtle body is what? In its seed form here. And it's not projecting, Ishwara is not projecting what? The senses, the mind, and the intellect. In other words, the mind, the intellect, and the senses have been reduced to their seed state, to their pure idea, and they're sleeping here. So there's no experience, apparently no experience there. In other words, there's no experience of any vasanas or the inner world, and there's no experience of the outer world in that state. There is experience. Because this state has got its own entity also, its own jiva. The jiva here is called Vishwa, the jiva here is called Tejasa, and the jiva here is called Pranya. Upanishad said it's a sukshma vritti. Vritti means a thought, and sukshma means very subtle thought. It's a very subtle thought or vibration, or idea, sitting in the causal body that allows awareness, the self, to experience itself as bliss. So in this state, pranya, the experiencing entity, and when you're sleeping, you are pranya. Experiences what? Limitlessness and bliss. There's no limits there, is there? In that state. A king sleeping on silk sheets with his queen in a palace is experiencing exactly the same thing that a drunken beggar lying in the gutter in his own vomit is experiencing. It's no difference. In sleep, everything is all leveled down. Everybody's experiencing exactly the same thing. Because the jiva, the individual that you think you are, has been reduced to prajna, this sukshma vritti that's capable of experiencing bliss. Prajna is an interesting word. And you know what it means? It means almost enlightened. It means you're almost enlightened in this state. This is where Greg Good and the direct path people got a little confused. And there's a big confusion in the spiritual world about this Upanishad. They misread it. They just read it in English, or they had bad teachers who misread it. But now, where was I here? I didn't see.
The jiva in deep sleep.
Yeah, the jiva in deep sleep is almost enlightened. Why is it almost enlightened? Because it's experiencing limitlessness. It's limitless, and it's blissful. You like to go to sleep. You want to go to sleep, and when you're a jiva sleeping, a prajna, and you get waked up, you're not a happy camper. You draw up. Why? Because you're experiencing bliss. That's why. There's no thoughts or feelings or emotions or objects or people or anything there to disturb you. So you're just experiencing your own nature in that state. Why are you? Well, then I should be enlightened experientially, shouldn't I? Huh? See, so people say, we say, well, if enlightened's experiential, then everybody's enlightened, because everybody has slept, haven't they? Huh? You've all slept, so you must be enlightened. What's the problem, though, in this state? One is you can't stay in it forever, and two is that you're not aware. You don't have knowledge of who you are. That's correct. The knowledge is missing. So even though I'm experiencing fullness and completeness and wholeness and limitlessness, when I wake up, the knowledge doesn't stay with me. Prajna disappears and Vishwa appears, and then what? Since there's no knowledge there, the knowledge doesn't follow me into this state over here, and so when I wake up, I forget that I'm limitless bliss, and my experience of limitless bliss goes. There's actually a gap, usually. If you have a really good nap, say in the afternoon, a really deep one, and then you wake up and enter the waking state, the bliss will follow you for a while from that nap. Have you noticed that? You'll feel really, really good for, sometimes about half an hour, I feel really, really blissful. Even though I'm awake and functioning here, it's all just leftover bliss from the deep sleep state. Because all these states are actually simultaneously stacked up at one point. There's no time or dimensionality to reality. So actually, the waking dream and deep sleep state are all occurring all at once in awareness. Anyway, never mind that. Now the teaching, does anybody have an argument with that analysis so far? Good. Because you can't argue with it, because it's just a fact. It's just a fact. This is how it is. It's a Vedanta, huh?
For the jiva.
No, for anything. I mean, yeah, for a jiva, the knowledge is only for jivas. It's knowledge. It's not, and you can see just from your own experience that this is how it is. I'm just bringing out your own knowledge about these three states, that's all. Everybody knows this. Now, what you probably don't know is the next part of the teaching. But Vedanta is the experiential. People say, oh, no, that's all intellectual, Ram. Vedanta's a philosophy. It's just a bunch of ideas. There's nothing experiential. There's no love in it either. There's no love in it, and there's no experience in it. That's baloney. It's nonsense. We're very experiential. We analyze experience very clearly, and we're not against it at all. We're all for experience. We're all for love. We have no problem with any of this stuff. We just want to understand what this means, how it works. That's all we're interested in here. Okay, so we've established now that there are 3 states and there are 3 experiencing entities. 1 entity for each state. You can't have experience as what? A subject and an object. Experience is a transaction between a subject and an object. That's what experience is. It's pure duality. There's me, there's the object of my experience, and then there's the transaction between me and my experience, and that's called experience or experiencing. Now just wait on this, okay? Now, if I'm real, remember what our definition of real is. Real means I'm always present, I don't change. I'm always present and I don't change. I'm limitless, I'm not limited by any experience. If I'm real, I have to be what? Present all the time. I have to be available in every state and beyond every state to be real. If there's anything beyond these states, I have to be there also to be real, because reality is non-dual. Awareness, am non-dual. I'm always present and I'm always available. Okay, now let's analyze these jivas. What happens to Vishwa, the awakening state entity, when it goes to sleep? What happens to that person, that consumer?
It disappears.
Yeah. Yeah, it disappears, doesn't it? And how does it reappear? How does that jiva reconstitute itself?
Just by
It reconstitutes itself as what? As prana. It changes or morphs into prana. The jiva is eternal. There's only one jiva, but this one jiva, what? Has 3 states. It has 3 roles. So, right, for me, if I'm this waking state entity, to get to sleep, what do I have to do? I have to stop being the waking state entity, don't I? Because I can't take my life and everything into the deep sleep state and enjoy myself there, enjoy the state and my life and this person that I think I am. I can't do that. This person has to stop existing as that person and morph into or transform into what? Into prana, into a sleeper. And there I get a different experience, don't I? There I get experience of the absence of objects, and I experience limitlessness, and I feel really great. I feel really good. Now, what happens to the sleeper when I start to dream?
it disappears.
It disappears, doesn't it? It morphs into or becomes or changes into a dreamer. And it starts to experience the dream world. And what happens to the dreamer when the dreamer wakes up? It disappears. Duh. Doesn't it? Now, if I'm real, I have to be present all the time, don't I? I can't be one person one time, and another person the second time, and a third person the third time. If that's true, then who am I? Which one am I? Which one of these three jivas am I? A long time ago, it was 15 years ago, this woman fell in love with me. And then she rented a house next to her house for me to stay in. And then, before anything actually happened, a young guy came on the scene. You know, he's about 25 years younger than me, really, and he's an artist, and he's really handsome, and he plays the guitar, and she falls for him. She just she forgets me, and she decides that she loves him now. And then she came next door, because that was kind of difficult, embarrassing for her, because, you know, she told me all these wonderful things and set it all up and got me this house and everything. And then suddenly she's living next door with this young kid, and it's embarrassing to have me next door, see? It reminds her of how fickle she is, you see? So she came and knocked on my door. And she said, I want you to leave. So I want you to leave. Actually, I had paid the money for the house, and my name was on the lease, but she you know, it was so uncomfortable for her. I didn't really mind. It was fine, actually. I didn't have a lot invested in it. I liked her, and we had some artistic and spiritual connection, and that was fine. She wanted her feelings wanted to go there. That's fine with me. I don't really care. So I wasn't about to just walk out. I'd gone to some trouble, and I liked it there, actually. So I said to her, okay, I will leave. I'll do that for you, if you can answer this question. I said, because I'm not sure who I'm talking to. Am I talking to the person who loves me, or said they love me, or am I talking to the one who doesn't love me? Which one am I talking to here? And she looked at me like, and she couldn't answer the question. She was just dumbfounded. And she turned and walked off. She was irritated. Huh? So who was I talking to? The one who loved me or the one who, You see, I had two different people here. I had one person who loved me, and then the next person says they don't love me, and it looks like it's the same person to me. So which one are you? Because I only see one person standing there. But she must have thought she was two different people. Understand? And then like 3 weeks later, this big truck came, and she and her boyfriend and all their furniture moved out. Okay, all right. So who am I now? Huh? Am I Vishwa? Am I Pranya? Or am I Tejasa? I think I'm this one, don't I? But when I'm here, I don't think I'm this one, do I? I think I'm this one. And when I'm here, I don't know that I'm either one of these two, do I? I don't think I'm a waker or a dreamer. I think I'm somebody else here. Yeah, experience. I experience. Yeah. Then you say, I slept, don't you? Here you say, I slept well, so you must think that you're the sleeper. Say, I dreamed here, and so the I must think it's a dreamer. And you say, I'm awake here, and so the I must think it's a... But this I, this is a funny I, because, isn't it? It's a very strange I. Because 1 minute it's this, and the next minute it's that, and the third minute it's something else, isn't it? So is this I a real I? No, it's not. Now, what is present in all three states and beyond all three states? Anybody have a I'll give you like a half an hour to contemplate. to contemplate on this teaching. What is present in all three states? Awareness. And does awareness change from state to state? No. Awareness is constant. The states change and the jivas change, the individuals change, the jivas change, but I don't change. I illumine the sleep. This is why I know that I slept. I illumine the dream. And I illumine the objects in the waking state. So can I be what? I can only be awareness. Isn't it? That's what's constant, that's what's always present, that's what's real. What's real about me is my awareness, not this experiencing entity that I think I am. We think we're this experiencing entity, and we think this is real, and we think our experience is real. And we're nattering on about what we're experiencing and what we're not experiencing, when we don't realize that the experiencer is what? Not real. So any conclusions that the experiencer makes in this state are invalid because that experiencer is not constant. They don't mean anything. The experiences that are important to me, are only state specific. They don't apply here, they don't apply here. They only apply in this one little aspect of my experience. My whole experience is what? The totality of my experience is waking, dream, and deep sleep state. Now, just to help you with this a little more, we said here that this dream state entity is called Tejasa. Tejasa. Tejasa means the shining one, the one that shines. Now, when you're in the waking state, you see objects. Why do you see objects? Because there's light. Physical light, isn't that right? You see me because the lights are on. There's no light in this room, you don't see me, I don't see you. So, physical light is illuminating the objects here, in this state. But in this state, the sense instruments are shut down. Your ears don't work, your eyes don't work. Let's just stick with the eyes. Okay? The eyes aren't working, are they? Because they're closed. And so no light's coming in. So how do you see all of the objects in this world? Where's the light coming from? The sun is shining. You're going about your business. You're talking with your friends and family and so forth and so on. Everything is as clear as anything in this state. So where's the light coming from? Consciousness. Yeah, reflected consciousness. The dream state is the experience of the subtle body. And that's reflecting awareness, and awareness reflects on the subtle body and illumines the vasanas as they appear in the form of my experiences, in the form of the dream experience. And when I go to this, when this state happens, when Ishvara creates this state for me, what? The subtle body collapses into the causal body. This is the causal body. This is the subtle body, and that's the gross and subtle body. Gross and subtle body, the waking state. The subtle body collapses into here, and there's no light. There's no, and with the subtle body collapses, the vasanas The vasanas that are playing in the subtle body, they also go back to their seed form. They retreat into seeds, into potential thoughts. And the subtle body becomes potential also. The subtle body is just a seed. That's Ishvara. The structure of this reality is just a seed, and it goes back into the causal state and sleeps. Just like a seed goes dormant. The knowledge of a tree, for example, sleeps in a seed. It goes dormant, and then the seed just sits there, and there's no tree. It just sits and sits and sits in the ground, and then the warms up in the spring, and then some water comes, and then what? The tree starts to sprout. The knowledge starts to express itself. The tree knowledge starts to express itself, and pretty soon you have a whole tree. It's become manifest, but it was sleeping in this state. It was unmanifest in this state. Now, people have this notion, and that because they were never taught this Upanishad properly, they think that the self is a fourth state, a transcendental state. Because the Upanishad says, it analyzes these three states, and then it says, in addition, there is a fourth. It doesn't mean a fourth state. It means there's a fourth factor. There's another factor which is not a state. And what is that fourth factor? That's called turiya. You've heard the word turiya, perhaps? T-U-R-I-Y, it means the fourth. And it's all been interpreted by the experiential crowd as a fourth state. And so people think that they've got to get in or experience this fourth state of consciousness. This is where the experiential notion took off. But the Upanishad doesn't say that. In fact, the Upanishads are clear that the self can't be experienced as an object, as a state. It says the self is agocharam. It means non-available for objectification. In other words, the self cannot be turned into an object of experience. It's always behind experience. It's always hidden behind experience. There's nothing behind the self that can turn the self into an object that could make the self an object of experience. So there's no fourth state for me to get. There's what? There's only myself to understand. I only need to understand myself to see that what? I am neither the waker, the dreamer, nor the deep sleeper. I am that because of which those three entities and those three states are known. Yes, ma'am.
And how does Vedanta explain the fourth? What do you think? What is the fourth?
The fourth?
Yes, you said that.
The fourth is not a state.
Yes, the fourth.
The fourth is just the awareness of the state. Because for any state, there has to be an awareness of the state, doesn't there? The awareness of the waking is the same awareness of the dream, is the same awareness of the deep sleep.
But in the Upanishad, it is written there's a fourth
Yeah, but it doesn't say fourth state. It means there's a fourth factor.
factor.
Okay? And that factor is you, awareness.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna